Are you ready to continue? The next data type that we are going to be exploring is the Booleans. Booleans are a binary data type that indicate Python whether the statement is true or it's false. We use this for conditions and for filtering for control flows, which we're going to be talking about in a different class. It's not in the scope of this very basic course. And if we turn the booleans into integers, a 1 is a true and a 0 is a false. If we look at what we have here in our Python notebook, we have the definition that I just explained, and then we have a method that's called bool, a built-in function actually, it's not a method. And we use this to transform a value into a true or a false, or a variable into a true or a false. And if the variable doesn't have any value within it, or inside of it, it's going to return a false. If it has a value inside of it, it's going to return a true. So we're going to see an example of this. I'm going to write here my variable. And we're going to say that my variable has a 0. And if I do bool my variable, it returns false, because 0 in a Boolean value is equal to false. If I do say that it's 1, it's going to return true. If I want to put anything else here, hello, it's going to return true, because the variable has a value inside of it. And it's just kind of like a way to transform a data type into a Boolean. If it has a 0 or no value at all, it returns a false. I'm going to write here none. And if it has a 1 or any value, it returns true. Now that we know that, we're going to go for the different operators that we have here to illustrate a little better what Booleans are. Equal equal is asking Python if a value is equal to this other value. Is 4 equals 4? Yes. Is 4 equals 2 plus 2? I'm sorry. Yeah. Is 4 equals 2 plus 3? No. And the operator that we have underneath it, exclamation mark, equal sign, tells us the opposite. It's not equal to. So in here, if I do the same thing that returned false earlier, it returns true, because 4 is not equal to 5. Is 4 larger than 5? Larger or equal than 5? No. Is 4... Sorry. I want to kind of put another cell here, because I want to dig a little deeper on the larger or equal, even though it's very straightforward and I'm pretty sure that you already know how it will work. But if I do this, I'm gonna get a true, because 5 is equal to 5. But if I do delete this, I'm gonna get false, because 5 is not larger than 5. 5 is equal to 5. This one is the same thing, the next operator. However, it's the opposite, smaller or equal. And whether you want to have the or equal or not, you just take away or put back the equal sign after the less than. We use a value here that's called isInstance to check if a variable or a value or a string or anything, an element, has a particular data type or is an object of a particular class. We're going to talk about object-oriented programming, where we're going to be expanding on classes in another course. For now, let's just stick with the ones that we know. 4 is a number. It is an integer, not a float. So if we write a 4 instead of the parentheses and we put here int, it's going to return a true. If I write a float over here, it should return false, and it does. Because it's not a float, it's an integer. We already saw the difference between the two decimals. And in here, if I do string, it's going to return false as well. It can get a little bit more complicated, because if I write here a 3 and 4 and I put this within brackets, I'm creating our first list. And I'm gonna check if this is a list, and it says it is. However, if I say that this is a set, it says false. This is not a set, this is a list. It comes very handy if you want to check the instance type of an instance, of an observation, of a value, element, variable, whatever you want to call it. Instance is the official name. With our operators, with our Boolean operators, we can use and, or, and not. We can spell them out, as well as just write kind of like an operator for them. Like I can do and, or I can do the ampersand. And Python interprets them the same. I can do an or I can do this. Python interprets it the same. For not, we use a tilde. Let's see. We're gonna create a variable. It's gonna be called my variable. And we're gonna store a 5 there. 5 is larger than 6 and smaller than 7. This is going to return a false because 5 is not larger than 6. When we use an AND, both conditions need to be met for it to return a true. However, if I decide to use an OR, it's going to return a true because at least one of these two conditions is met. 5 is lower than 7. If I do this, it's going to return a false because I turned this condition into its opposite before asking Python. I think this is enough for us to grasp the concept of and, or, and not, and how we can use it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these two, and we're going to start talking about any and all. Imagine now that we have a set of conditions, and I want any of them to be met. So basically, it's a different way of writing an or. If I say any here, sorry. I should have listed them, that's really what's going on in here. True. Because at least one of the two conditions is met. And if I say all, false, because at least one of the conditions is not met. And this is how Booleans work. Next, timestamps. Thank you for watching.